As something we should all know, Amtrak hasn't had the cleanest safety record over the years. First, you had the Salem, Illinois disaster a month after its startup in June 1971 that killed 11 people. Then you had the Chase, Maryland accident in January 1987 that killed 16. But no wreck in Amtrak's history is as tragic and catastrophic as a Big Bayou Canot disaster. This is the unfortunate tale of that wreck. It is the early morning hours of Wednesday, September 22nd, 1993. Amtrak train number 2, the EB Sunset Limited, was on its normal route, heading from Los Angeles, California to Miami, Florida. The train was powered by 3 locomotives, with a new GE Genesis P40DC 819 leading, and trailing are 2 EMD F40 PHRs numbered 262 and 312.
The train makes its normal stop in New Orleans, Louisiana that night, but gets held up due to a faulty air conditioner unit and a broken toilet in one of the cars. After a half-hour delay, the train with about 210 people on board then gets underway into the night, but unbeknownst to them, there was trouble ahead.
Around the same time, a tugboat named MV Mauvilla was pushing 6 barges of coal and cement down the river. The boat took a turn on the Mobile River and entered the Big Bayou Canyon. But a little ways down, the barges then slam into something, the captain thinking it was just another tugboat. But what he didn't know is that the boat hit the railroad bridge that the Sunset Limited was supposed to cross, causing a nasty kink in the track that meant certain doom. At 2:53 a.m., the train speeds towards the bridge doing over 70 miles an hour. Then, it happens.
Yes, listen, this is Amtrak train supervisor. We're on the Mobile River. The bridge is going up. We got cars burning, people in the river. Can't swim. We need help. Any kind of help you can get down here.
Stay on the line with me, sir.
Yes.
Okay, you with the Amtrak train?
Yes, ma'am. I'm the supervisor on board. We're on the Mobile River. We got cars burning. They're over the bridges. There's people in the water. We're trying to help them, but we need all kind of help. Yes, ma'am. We need help.
All 3 locomotives, the baggage car, a sleeping car, and 2 coaches go off the tracks, with one coach being fully submerged and another hanging precariously on the bridge. 819 impales itself to the mud on the other side of the bayou. The 2 F40s also go down, with 262 badly burned and 312 being almost halfway sunk in the water. Upon impact, all 3 locomotives' fuel tanks ruptured, resulting in a massive fuel spill, releasing thousands of gallons of diesel fuel and a subsequent fire that followed, burning one of the coaches filled with people. It was a nightmare. All some people had to even escape was from the fire and from the diesel fuel. In an odd turn of events, the crew of the Mauvilla tugboat used the vessel to save the lives of about 17 people, and plenty of people who were in the last coaches were lucky to be alive. But not so lucky are the people trapped inside the superliners that went into the river. In total, 47 people died, and 103 more were injured. It is the worst rail disaster in the United States since the 1958 Newark Bay rail accident, 30 years prior, that took the lives of 48 people. Now, despite what happened, it's sad to say that the wreck was avoidable.
As stated earlier, the Mauvilla entered the Big Bayou Canyon around 2:45 a.m., just minutes before the train would get to the bridge. But due to heavy fog, the towboat's pilot, Willie Odom, couldn't see ahead of him. He was trying to find a tree that he could tie the barge to until the fog had cleared, and off he would go. However, it was found that the tugboat wasn't even supposed to be going there in the first place. Odom wasn't properly trained on how to read the radar, and so due to very poor visibility because of the fog and his lack of experience, he didn't realize he was way off course. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, The boat also lacked a compass and a chart of the waters. Odom believed that he was still on the Mobile River and had identified the bridge in the radar as just another tugboat, when in reality, it was the CSX-owned train bridge. After the investigation, Willie Odom, the boat pilot on duty, was not found to be criminally liable for the accident, but he did end up losing his boat pilot license. However, the wreck wasn't entirely his fault. There were a couple other factors that led up to this. First, the bridge the train passed over had an incomplete swinging ability. Plus, when the Movilla hit the bridge, it didn't break the welded rails, but severely kinked the track about 3 feet out of alignment. So even at high speed, there was no way the train was going to make it. Second, because the continuously welded rails didn't break, but rather kinked, this led the track circuit controlling the bridge approach block signals to be closed, and the signal continued to display a green signal aspect. Now, had the rails actually snapped, this would mean the track circuit would have opened, causing a red or stop signal to be displayed. And had this happened, the Sunset Limited wouldn't have been allowed to go any further, and someone would have been dispatched to eventually find that the rails on the Mobile Bridge had kinked because of the barge hitting it. Simply, had the tugboat stayed on its path, or if the Sunset Limited didn't have that delay in New Orleans in the first place, it would have safely passed through about 20 minutes before the barge came along, and the wreck as we know it may have never even happened.
As for the locomotives involved, all 3 units were damaged beyond repair and scrapped after the accident. 819 would be the first of its class to be scrapped after the accident, being in service for only 20 days, just less than 3 weeks. The baggage car and 3 coaches that went into the river were also scrapped. However, the rest of the cars apparently seem to be still around, with one being turned to a Pacific parlor car. However, the Sunset Limited would wreck once again on October 9, 1995. Saboteurs derailed a train near Palo Verde, Arizona, when 29 spikes were removed from a section of track, and the signal system was short-circuited to cover up the sabotage. Kinda scary that this happened. As for Amtrak's Sunset Limited service, it still runs. However, service east of New Orleans was suspended indefinitely due to damage caused by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, when the train now terminating in New Orleans where the delay began in the first place. To date, the Big Bayou disaster remains the deadliest train wreck both in Alabama's railroad history and in the history of Amtrak. Even to this day, no Amtrak accident has come being close to being this bad, and hopefully, we don't see a wreck as tragic ever again.